Okay, I want you to really picture this for a second. You are deep, deep in the woods. The campfire you built a few hours ago, it's burned down to just a few glowing orange embers, and it's casting these long, twisted, kind of creepy shadows against the tree trunks all around you. The air has grown absolutely freezing cold, and there's this incredibly thick, heavy fog rolling right over the ridgeline, totally swallowing up whatever moonlight was left. You are miles and miles away from civilization. It's just you and the absolute heavy silence of the wilderness. And then, the silence breaks. But it doesn't break with a normal sound, not the snap of a dry twig or the rustle of some leaves. It breaks with a sound that literally freezes the blood in your veins. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we are grabbing our flashlights and we are heading straight into the dark, tangled woods of the American Midwest. We're going to confront one of the most terrifying, most enduring, and honestly most controversial cryptids in modern folklore. We are unmasking the beast of the mountains. We are going looking for the Ozark Howler. You know, the hallmark of any truly great monster is the way it announces its presence to you, right? And the howler's cry, it is pure, unadulterated sensory horror. Now, eyewitnesses have described this sound in a lot of different ways over the decades, but the core elements, the things that really make your hair stand on end, they always remain completely consistent. Just imagine a sound that starts really deep, incredibly guttural, kind of like a massive wild predator warning you to back off immediately, but then it abruptly rises into this high-pitched, echoing shriek. Some local hunters have described it as the bugle of a massive elk, but twisted, pitched way lower, and then mixed together with the frantic, almost hysterical laugh of a hyena. And then others, they swear up and down that it sounds exactly like a woman screaming in the pitch black. It is a sound that is entirely unnatural, it's completely unearthly, and according to the local legend, if you hear that sound echoing through the hollows, well, it means the beast has already seen you. But to really understand a monster, you have to understand its habitat. Where does this thing live? The Ozark Mountains aren't your typical towering, snow-capped peaks like you'd see out west. This is a vast, ancient, and incredibly rugged plateau. We are talking about an area spanning over 47,000 square miles. That is huge. It stretches right across Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and even edges down into Texas. It is basically a giant labyrinth. Dense, totally unforgiving oak and hickory forests, deep, winding river valleys, and these massive, hidden limestone cave systems. It's the kind of place where geographical boundaries just sort of blur together, where isolated communities have lived entirely off the land for generations, and where, frankly, it is incredibly easy to get completely and hopelessly lost. It is a landscape that just naturally breeds mystery. Honestly, when you are standing in a fog-choked Ozark Hollow at 2 o'clock in the morning, the idea that something prehistoric and undocumented is quietly watching you from the tree line, it doesn't just feel possible, it feels absolutely undeniable. All right, moving to Section 1, Anatomy of the Beast. What exactly is the Ozark Howler? Okay, let's dive right into this. If you took all the apex predators of the American wilderness and you mashed them all together with a really heavy dose of absolute nightmare fuel, you would get the Ozark Howler. We've pulled eyewitness accounts from decades of different reports, and they consistently describe a creature roughly the size of a black bear. So we're talking a very stocky animal, anywhere from 250 to maybe 500 pounds, with this incredibly muscular, thick-legged build. It's reportedly covered head to toe in shaggy, heavily matted, black or dark gray fur. And witnesses say it moves with the terrifying, almost totally silent agility of a massive wildcat, taking these huge leaping bounds through the brush. But then you get to the face. The howler is said to have these piercing, glowing red eyes that can reportedly literally put a person into a frozen trance. And most bizarrely of all for a supposed apex predator, it has prominent, curled horns protruding right out of its head, almost like a ram or a billy goat. I mean, it is an absolute anatomical contradiction. So this brings us to the absolutely crucial question, right? Is the Ozark Howler a biological reality? Is there really some undocumented, horned bear-cat hybrid roaming around the American Midwest? Or are we dealing with an elaborate trick of the night? Is it a psychological illusion, or maybe even a deliberate, coordinated hoax? To completely dissect this legend, to really gut this myth and get down to the hard truth, we are going to need to trace its footprints all the way back through time. Which brings us to Section 2, A History of Encounters, Tracking the Legend Through Time. What is incredibly interesting about this slide and the history of this creature in general is how the legend literally adapts to the times. It shifts its shape just as much as the monster itself supposedly does. Look at this timeline. Our absolute earliest reports date all the way back to the early 1800s. The incredibly famous American frontiersman Daniel Boone was exploring the Black River area of Missouri when he allegedly fired his rifle at a massive, hairy beast that he specifically referred to as a yahoo. Yeah, a yahoo. Fast forward a bit to the 1950s, right around the post-World War II era, and we see this massive, sudden surge in sightings. Out of nowhere, locals and passing tourists are flooding the zone, reporting a goat-shaped creature with a bizarre bear-wolf face roaming the woods. Then, things get really modern in the late 1990s. The howler goes digital. Early internet cryptozoology forums just completely exploded with these supposedly first-hand eyewitness accounts of a massive black cat. And most recently, in 2015, a camper claimed to have finally captured the beast on camera at Devil's Den State Park over in Arkansas, and they emailed the photos straight to the local news stations.
Let's look at Section 3, Old Myths, New World, the folklore connection.
So to truly unmask the howler, we actually have to stop looking at biology for a second. We need to look at the people who originally settled the Ozarks. The early settlers of the Ozark Plateau back in the 18th and 19th centuries were predominantly immigrants coming over from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and England. And they didn't just bring their families. They brought their deep-seated, centuries-old superstitions from the Old World. And this brilliantly illustrates what happened. On the left side of your screen, we have the Kusith. That is the mythological black dog of death straight out of Celtic folklore. It was described as an enormous, shaggy hound with glowing red eyes, and its howl was considered a literal harbinger of doom. Now look on the right, the Ozark Howler. Notice the completely identical traits: bear-sized, dark shaggy fur, glowing red eyes, and a scream that signals tragedy. These early settlers were utterly terrified of the vast, completely uncharted American wilderness. Subconsciously, they basically took the phantom hounds that haunted the foggy moors of Europe, and they released them straight into the dense, shadowy hollows of the Ozarks. And all of that history brings us to a really fascinating psychological concept called ostension. It's a big word, but ostension is basically what happens when folklore physically shapes our reality. Think about it like this. Imagine you're an Ozark farmer 100 years ago, or even just a modern-day hiker out on a trail. You have grown up your entire life hearing these terrifying campfire stories of the horned, red-eyed howler. One night, you're walking near a creek. It is pitch black out there. Suddenly, a massive black bear stands up on its hind legs in the brush right in front of you. And in that exact same split second, a barn owl lets out an absolutely blood-curdling screech from the tree canopy directly above your head. Your brain, which is instantly flooded with adrenaline and totally preconditioned by all those local myths, it doesn't logically process, oh, that's a bear, and oh, that's an owl. It rapidly combines the massive dark shape and the horrifying scream into one single terrifying entity. Your brain tells you, without a shadow of a doubt, I just saw the Ozark Howler. All right, it's time for Section 4, Unmasking the Howler, the suspect lineup. Okay, let's look at the hard scientific reality here. We're going to officially gut this legend by systematically breaking down the so-called evidence using straight-up biology and logic. So those trail cam photos from Crawford County and those famous 2015 Devil's Den pictures we mentioned? Well, wildlife biologists at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission have reviewed them extensively. And the verdict? They are either completely misidentified cougars, which do occasionally wander through the region, or just unusually large black bobcats. Or, specifically in the case of the 2015 photos, it was proven to be a very clever, manipulated Photoshop job of someone's pet dog. What about that terrifying, unearthly shriek? Well, the Ozarks are home to elk, and if you've never heard an elk bugle, it sounds remarkably alien and incredibly high-pitched. You add in the completely unhinged shrieks of the barred owl or the howls of local coyotes, and boom, you have your perfect soundtrack of terror. And that bear-sized, shaggy, muscular body? Well, frankly, that is exactly what an American black bear looks like, especially when it rears up on its hind legs to investigate a strange noise in the dark. Literally, every single terrifying trait of the howler is just a piece of completely normal, native wildlife, heavily exaggerated by fear and shadows. But wait, what about that massive surge of sightings in the 1990s? The one that supposedly put the howler on the modern map and got everyone talking about it online? Well, dedicated cryptozoological researchers eventually tracked those specific reports down to their source. And this is wild. It turns out, an undergraduate student at the University of Arkansas made a bet with his friends that he could successfully fool the newly emerging online cryptozoology community. He literally created multiple fake online aliases, he systematically seeded internet message boards with completely fabricated sightings, and he sent incredibly detailed, completely fake emails to serious researchers detailing encounters with this horned beast. Modern technology essentially just poured a giant can of gasoline on a centuries-old campfire tale. It just proves that sometimes the monsters we fear the absolute most are simply the ones we invent ourselves. Let's move to our final section and see how this builds. Section 5. Why we need monsters. The psychology of cryptids. So here's the ultimate question. If science and basic biology can so easily and so thoroughly explain away the Ozark Howler, why does the legend absolutely refuse to die? People are still talking about it today. I absolutely love this perspective from the author Lillian Stone. She says, and I quote, "The Howler is more like a guardian of the rugged Ozarkian landscape, a reminder not to step too far into the realm of nature." And honestly, this right here is why cryptids actually matter, even when they are completely 100% debunked. They act as monuments to our collective respect and, yes, our primal fear of the untamed wilderness. The Howler isn't some malicious demon actively trying to hunt you down in the dark. It functions as a boundary marker. It's the forest's way of looking right at us and saying, hey, you are no longer at the top of the food chain out here. Respect the woods, or the woods will deal with you. So let's wrap this up. Is there a literal, biological Ozark Howler stalking the Midwest right now? An impossible bear-cat hybrid with ram horns growing out of its skull? Almost certainly not. But does the Ozark Howler exist? Absolutely. It exists in the sudden rustling of the dry leaves when you're completely alone on a hiking trail. It exists in the heavy, freezing fog rolling off the White River at midnight. It exists in the exact way our hearts start pounding in our chests when we hear a large branch snap just an inch beyond the safety light of our campfire. The true magic of the Howler isn't about biology. The magic is that it keeps the world feeling vast, untamed, and deeply, deeply mysterious. It constantly reminds us that for all our technology, we still haven't quite conquered the dark. Which leaves us with this final, kind of unsettling thought. We may have successfully unmasked the beast of the Ozarks today. We've replaced a terrifying demon with completely normal black bears, giant bobcats, and the incredible power of our own brilliant imaginations. But the wilderness out there is massive, truly massive. So I just have to ask you, even in an age of smartphones, GPS satellites, and absolute scientific certainty, what other secrets do you think are still out there, quietly watching us, just beyond the campfire light in the dark woods? Until next time, keep your flashlights close and keep exploring.